feed a guitar through it and get a really cool fuzz bass sound that sounds like it's shredding, and then when it doesn't work,
Yeah.
it just kind of chirps like a big bird, and like the speaker kind of flaps against the and it's kind of gets this weird electricity in it.
Right.
I just started using it recently.
So you have a bunch of fairly bizarre antique kind of instruments and things in your house. Is that right? Oh, you like old equipment and tape recorders and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of machines, but not as much as I would like.
Right.
But I'd like to buy as many broken machines as I can. And
Yeah.
I decided that I want to start having shows in my room where instead of creating an environment and then bringing it to someplace else and sort of going through the trial and error of adapting something to a venue, just sort of like it works in your room, so then have shows in your room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or in your house. I mean, you could probably fit at least 50 people in there.
Yeah. Why not? Absolutely. One of the things that sort of strikes me on listening to your albums is that you're much less obviously sort of retro, if one can use the word, than the Olivias, you know. And I don't mean to use that word in a derogatory way at all, but I mean obviously they're kind of using certain kind of 60s references and things in a very playful and brilliant way. I think they're fantastic. But I wondered whether the fact that you're maybe less interested in that was why you originally decided to head off on your own after the first single. Or what?
That's a whole long story, but
right.
No, I think the band was sort of a combination of all of our personalities when we were together. But I mean, me leaving was sort of a pretty abstract situation that had more to do with just like things going on in our personal lives. And stuff.
Right.
Like we sort of decided that we would continue making music via the mail, and then it wasn't until certain things happened that we just ended up sort of having two separate bands.
Right.
Even though we both sort of feel very much still a part of each other's music.
Right. I'm sure. Well, that's obviously the case.
But I guess the visions are different. You know?
Visions seem to me to be very different. You know. I mean, your music seems a lot more personal and I think your writing is extraordinary. It's a very very intense kind of personal vision, and the lyrics and stuff are just extraordinary to me. I mean, I haven't heard anything like that in ever. I don't think. I can't think of anything to really compare them to. And you seem to have kind of staked out a much more kind of maybe sort of, I don't know, sort of, you've definitely gone your own way. What are you currently working on the next record? I mean, are you writing songs for the next record, planning the recording of it?
Well, things right now are sort of in a very kind of amorphous phase where I'm sort of trying to get a handle on, in a very positive way, get a handle on the things that are going on in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sort of in a typical situation that I always find myself in, where there's just like a very blurred sketch of feelings that like I have to sort of discover within myself.
Yes. And
I'm sort of going through the process of writing it and discovering it. It's really it's one of my favorite times in my life.
Yes.
So I'm glad to be back there again.
Are you likely to do the record again in Denver with Robert? Yeah. Great.
Oh yeah, I definitely work with Robert. But like I've been writing a series of. I'm writing like a book of like sort of like a, I guess you might call it like an instruction manual of reality, but it's like every part of reality is sort of turned upside down.
Yes.
It's like a young person's guide to moving through three-dimensional space, but everything is not what it's supposed to be.
Right.
But it would sort of come across as like a children's book on just everyday things.
Right.
Like clouds, for instance, but like clouds would actually be a person's soul, and that people in the old days thought that the earth. Well, there's something about unborn butterflies in the inside of your head that ties into your soul, where there's clouds, and the whole idea is that like you could install a exhibition tank in your body where everyone could show off their internal cloud kingdom.
Right. Right.
But that's just all like, but anyway, so there's a book, and then there's also I'm trying to get involved with clay animation, and then there's the songs.
Right.
So that's kind of what's happening with me right now.
Right. And you're kind of pretty happy in Athens, you know, because you talked about heading up into the Ozarks and really getting away from everything.
Yeah. Well, we have
still like a
yeah. Well,
plan?
we have a. Well, we're currently building a cabin in North Carolina.
Oh, cool.
That's sort of slowly coming together.
Yeah. By we, you mean just you and or
me
the collective?
Well, we're sort of we're trying to encourage everyone to build domes up there right now.
Cool.
And we have one cabin.
Who's into geodesic domes? Peter is, right.
But we do have a cabin going up there, and we should have like a phone soon.
Right.
So that we could be hooked up to the internet.
How far away is it?
2 hours.
2 hours from it.
But it's up on top of a mountain, yeah.
Cool. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Do you think there'll come a point where, you know, the Elephant Six bands will go their own way? I mean, is it? Do you think it'll be hard to sustain this almost utopian situation indefinitely? I mean, do you?
I don't think it will be. No, I don't think it's really hard at all. Actually, it's all pretty easy.
Yeah. Because there's a basic. I mean, from what I can see, you know, you guys really trust and respect each other, and
right. Yeah, I think it's just all of these people are just a part of my identity as a person. Like, I realize that like their lives really shape mine, and they're, you know, when I find myself completely removed from all these people, I start to really hit home as to how much they're just a part of my reality. That, like, you know, it's an important part.
Yes. Were there any like models for the Elephant Six adventure? I mean, were there any things that you could point to in like in terms of artistic movements, communes, collectives that inspired the idea of this close kinship and involvement between a comparatively large group of individuals? Or did it just happen completely organically?
Well, I think it just came out of the need to create something that otherwise, living in such an isolated and sort of empty place as Louisiana, we were able to sort of take what was meaningful out of our environment and turn it into something that we felt like was tangible.
Yes.
Otherwise, I think we would have all been very lonely and very lost.
Right.
And now that we've grown older, being together is just an extension of, like I said, an extension of ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. People usually think of sort of Louisiana as a place where, you know, associated with music that's very kind of black influence, you know, swamp rock and you know, even Cajun music, and one doesn't expect to hear the kind of music you guys make coming out of a place like that.
Right.
Why do you think that is? I mean, not that you have any sort of obligation to be sort of swamp rockers or anything.
Right.
But I can't think of many, I can't think of much music that's come out of that state, and you might say, well, it doesn't really, it began there, but it kind of reached fruition elsewhere. It doesn't fit into any tradition in terms of the Deep South. But what, if anything, is there that's Southern about, say, your music in particular? I know there's you bring quite a lot of the your childhood experiences in terms of Episcopalian stuff. That obviously one could hold up and say that was a Southern kind of element. Is there anything else that you could say was like, this is Southern music, or is that just not even an issue for you?
Yeah, it's not really an issue for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I understand the influence of being there, and like the influence of being in the South and being here at this period. But it's not so much Southern music. I mean, I think I was sort of brought up around a lot of storytelling and a lot of, especially in East Texas, sort of a mysterious sort of feeling of like, what's going on inside those houses, like what are those lights on the other end of that that field over there, like who's over, what's, that kind of mysterious, and wondering what, what's going on inside those people's minds.
Yeah. And how much of your imagery would you say comes from Southern sort of mythology or art or anything like that? I mean, would you say that your imagery, which is as I say, is like startling, would you tie in any way to sort of Southern, writers that you might have read? Is there any kind of connection there?
I never
Not really.
read
No.
very much when I was young, no. Sorry.
That's fine. Don't worry. Just curious.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about any more recent Elephant Six projects or things that are sort of coming up in the next sort of 6 months that would be worth knowing about, apart obviously from the Olivia album?
Right.
What have you been involved in that we should know about? Other side projects, other bands?
Well, Julian's been making the music tapes record, which has been sort of like a very personal thing for me because I've been sort of living with it for the past 2.5 years. I mean, it's been like every sound that's on that record's been sort of in the backdrop of my life.
Right.
Making coffee or sweeping the floor or whatever.
Right.
So, and that record's finally is completed, and that's really exciting.
It? Oh, that's great. What's it going to be called? Just the music tape?
It's the first imaginary symphony for Nomad.
For No...
Mad.
Nomad.
Yeah.
Nomad. Two words. Nomad. Just Nomad.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's pretty...
and that'll be out when?
It's like probably next April or something.
Fantastic. Well, that'll be very interesting.
And there's a band called Dixie Blood Mustache.
Yes.
Have you been told about that?
Yeah, I have heard about that.
Okay.
And they're doing
They're one of my favorite bands.
Right. Oh, tell me also a little bit about Major Organ, which I think you're the sort of prime mover behind.
Right.
That is like the ultimate sort of Athens supergroup.
Right, yeah.
Congregating on New Year's Eve and doing a big show.
Right,
So that's just like everybody, is it? Yeah.
We're going to have a meeting on Wednesday and decide what we're going to do.
Okay.
We don't know yet.
Great. How many shows has that particular aggregation done before?
None.
Right, so it's like the first.
Yeah, but we've done a lot of recordings, and we're going to try to do... The biggest idea that I really wanted to see happen was that everyone... We'll have a meeting and we'll decide who wants to get involved and like what would be the best way for everyone to... What sort of recordable format would everyone be able to most easily work with, and then like call a meeting like 2 days later and everybody bring a tape or a DAT with like one track on it, and eventually everyone will, like, I would just like do an organ thing on my tape and then I would bring it in and pass it on, and then like everybody in the group would eventually be able to do an overdub.
Yes.
So there'd be like 10 people, 10 tapes, 10 overdubs, 10 songs. So I want to try to get everyone involved in that.
Sounds great.
See what happens.
Yeah. What for you? I mean, I know a little bit about how you guys came together in Ruston and so forth. You know, and how music sort of came to you, and it was almost like you were in a kind of vacuum, and you know there weren't any clubs and there weren't fanzines, and you know it was just this music was like the sound of another world. You know, what were the earliest kind of sort of, you know, if we can say lo-fi inspirations, the first things that really influenced the way you guys have made your records?
Right.
I mean, were there particular things that really made you think about, you know, using just 4-track recorders and doing things in a really imaginative, you know, low tech sort of style?
Right. I think Daniel Johnston was
Right.
an influence.
Yes.
Because it was just like this guy in Austin, like freaking out on his little
Yes.
boombox.
Yes.
And it was just like totally, you know, we're just like, oh my god, you
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know, we all had his little tapes and stuff, and so he was like, but I guess we discovered him when we were about 18.
Right. Which would have been when what year?
88.
Yeah. Right.
And so we were. I'm trying to think before that, because we were doing stuff. Like we did our first recordings in '83.
And they were pretty like sort of your kind of version of hardcore punk, were they? The very first things.
Yeah. When I played for
Maggot
people,
was
they
it?
yeah.
Right.
Well, it sounds more like White Light, White Heat with no drums.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine.
Because we didn't have a drummer.
Right.
And then you can't really hear the chord changes very well.
Right. And then you kind of evolved from there into slightly more kind of, you know, slightly more pop flavored, psychedelic flavored music. I mean,
Right.
I'm just inferring that from the names of the bands.
Right.
that, you
Sure.
know,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I guess the Clay Bears were probably the earliest psychedelic thing
Right.
that sort of continued on like through the years.
Right. When did you guys hear? Were you at all affected by something like My Bloody Valentine or any stuff like that that you heard? Or?
I remember Will was a big fan of that. I didn't really know
Right.
much about that
Okay.
music.
But Daniel Johnston anyway was a very
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine.
Jazz Fair and Daniel Johnston.
Right. The unsung sort of heroes and godfathers but
Right.
yeah. Do you think that the sort of, you know, new strain of, you know, if we can call it sort of psychedelic pop, neo-psychedelic pop, I mean, it's something that doesn't require drugs, it's more a kind of whole musical aesthetic, and it's certainly not something that could be compared with the original kind of Haight-Ashbury type of scene? I mean, you guys seem to come at this with more of a pure musical focus than in terms of a whole lifestyle of kind of tripping 24 hours a day. Is that fair to say?
Well, I
The
think
focus is not on you know, hallucinogenic experience.
right. Yeah. Well, I think some of us enjoy hallucinogenics more than others.
More than others, right?
So
You're not going to say which members of the
yeah. I wouldn't say you know which, you know, their experiences as psychedelics. I think have been, you know, pretty fruitful.
Pretty positive. Yes.
Which I think is always a good thing. For me, I just I don't do much because I just I don't know. I just have this certain state of mind that, like, I just have to sort of stay in, you know, so I don't.
Sure.
But no, I've definitely heard some acid influenced music, and it's been, I've really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there, I mean, are some of the other bands who I wouldn't necessarily have heard, you know, mining that particular vein as well? I mean, are there some fairly far out bands that I don't necessarily know about who are loosely connected with Elephant Six?
Well, the Clay Bears are more like that. I mean,
Right.
The Clay Bears are really krautrock and totally like, really into the Dream Machine, really into like word cut-ups and cutting up sounds and cutting up music as much as possible.
Right.
And trying to be as psychedelic as possible, yeah.
Right. How much kinship do you and the other bands feel with the whole sort of, network of acts that play things like Terror Stock? I mean, do you feel as any sort of do you have any kinship with the? I know you play with Gorky's and Britain and stuff, or at least you have some connection with them. And I mean, do you feel, not? Do you feel that there is there's common ground between?
Yeah, definitely. That way. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
I feel like now's a very fruitful time.
Yes.
And I think people are starting to realize, like at least in America, like that they're sort of. I think a lot of people are starting to take the power in their own hands now.
Yes.
They're starting to realize that, like, that they can take care of themselves and they can put out their records themselves. And
yes.
And I think the internet is making a big impact on that. And that, everybody's. It's empowering people to sort of like take control of their lives and their music and maybe turn down some things that like 10 years ago you would have accepted because you were so afraid of starving to death or whatever.
Right.
And that and that will fuck you up. They can really fuck you up in the end.
Yeah. What was happening in Athens before you all graduate and gravitated here? I mean, did
I don't know.
Immediately, I mean, obviously I know the whole REM sort of background and stuff, but what actually brought was? I mean, Will I think was the first to sort of colonize here among the Rustonians, but
coming to
what was it that brought you all here? I mean, it's obviously a healthy. I don't know. Was Will the first to come in?
Yeah. Well, we all always wanted to leave Louisiana and never could. It was just really hard. We were scared. We didn't have anywhere to go. It was the big world out there, or whatever,
Yeah.
But Will ended up moving to the Virgin Islands. Do you know about that?
No.
Yeah, Will's girlfriend got this crazy idea that they would move to the Virgin Islands and live this tropical life of like recording under the palm trees.
This is his current girlfriend. Who's
No.
Okay.
This is like years ago. This is like 1991.
Right.
And they thought they would make records under the palm trees, and they ended up like homeless and like in this like concrete shelter on the mountaintop.
Oh God.
And he finally managed to catch a plane to Florida, and somehow made his way up Florida to here. And there was like one mutual friend on the East Coast, and she happened to be here, living in a basement. And he ended up here, and we all just immediately gravitated towards each other.
Right.
So coming here was just sort of like this fluke, Now we're all here. It's really crazy.
And you've all found it, I assume, a very hospitable place.
Oh yeah.
For your music, and really made a home here.
Yeah.
Do you think if you hadn't all converged here and bonded together, you might still be? What do you think would happen? And would you still be in Ruston, feeling kind of trapped and frustrated, or?
I don't know what would happen, but I definitely know that without us existing as a group, like I know my records wouldn't exist.
Right.
And I think we'd be making music, but I don't think they would have. Being empowered as a group makes it to where you can reach a certain point in yourself, and the group helps you realize that.
Yes.
And without the group, there's no way.
Right. Would I mean, I know Matt was telling me that you did a solo show in Ruston. Have you guys ever done a kind of an Elephant Six show there? Have you been home and played there as a kind of
No.
I mean, all of you.
We've been talking about wanting to go to Ruston and play.
Mm.
But we haven't gone back. Everyone we know isn't there anymore. None of my family
is that
is there
right?
anymore.
Right.
So, but we've heard that there's kids there that know about the bands and they would like to have a show. So I would love to go back
You'd
and
be
play.
fun. Is
It'd
there
be
anywhere
great.
decent to play?
Oh no,
No.
we would just we
Have
all
to, like,
play a living
create
room,
a venue.
which would be good.
Yeah, yeah. Robert Schneider has said that the Apples are are very different. The bands, I don't know how many there are. He's talked in an interview about the Western bands on the Elephant Six scene. I don't know whether it's just his band, and there's a band called the Minders.
Yeah, the Minders. Have you heard the Minders record?
I haven't.
I love it. It's great.
Is it really good? He said they're very different from the Athens bands. I mean, obviously less experimental, more kind of, in his case, obviously much more kind of Beach Boys rooted. Do you perceive that difference? Is there definite distinction between the two scenes?
Well, I think there's a different distinction in sort of. I mean, I think in one respect we sort of allow each other to follow whatever vision we want,
right,
and be supportive of that under the same ideal. But I think the two sort of scenes are sort of becoming a little bit closer now.
Right.
I think we're going to release like a box set of like early recordings.
Great.
Robert called me and wanted to do that. And so
really?
I told him I would just like send him a box of 4-track tapes and let him mix stuff down.
Cool.
So that's really good though.
Yeah.
So I think there's two different scenes, being separated by such a large country, but I think at the same time.
Yeah, has it made it difficult at times with him being so far away?
And yet I think it makes it fun,
Yeah, right.
Denver's a really good place to go and only think about, you can leave your entire life behind and just go there and think about making a record for 2 months and that's it.
How often does Robert come here? Time to time?
Yeah, he makes trips every now and then. But he's either recording or touring.
Yes.
He's never not doing one or the other.
Right.
Because he's insane.
right. Is he touring at the moment?
I don't know.
Right.
I think he's actually working on Apple's EP right now.
Do you think it's possible to sort of follow in the steps of legendary sort of oddballs, shall we say, like the Sid Barretts, the Skip Spencers, and so forth, without deranging one's own senses? In other words, you can kind of be inspired by some of what they did without having to kind of go quite as kind of far as they did. I mean,
right.
are those people kind of inspirational to you? One could almost call them the great outsiders of
right.
I mean, maybe not Brian Wilson. I don't know, because he's sort of somehow, and yet within the sort of whole kind of corseted tradition of American pop, he's still somehow this strange figure who who's on the margins of it all. I mean, I don't know. Do you see
any of that in our music at all, like Skip Spence or any of that?
I mean, in yours, I do to some extent. I do find that there are things that slightly remind me of some of those, some of those figures.
Right.
I mean, I think that's one of the things I like about your music.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, really. I mean, what I really like is just the unfettered kind of quality of your lyrics and the way those work with, this very intense kind of music. I mean, it's like the words just seem to kind of come from I don't know. I mean, I just I really like that it's almost like they come from sort of visions, Yeah,
that's kind of what I'm trying. That's what I'm doing right now, is like trying to I've been trying to write songs about, like, when I wake up I think about the dreams that I've had the night before and I write them down in a journal, and then I guess I've been doing more experimenting at home these days, where I'll just go for it and fuck it, I had this dream, I write it down, and then I write a song about it, record it, and then go have breakfast. You know what I mean? And like sort of more of a process like that where like I know I'm creating this like giant mess.
Yes.
But I feel like it's like a positive it's a positive it's a positive process, and like I have no idea what's gonna come out of it.
Yes.
But yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing lately, where I've just been sort of allowing my mind to totally go and like sort through it later.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'd be very, very interested to hear that.
And I've been wanting to write songs for other people. Like, I have like ideas in my head, like wanting to write like an old country song that like two sisters would sing.
Mm. Yeah.
But it's about like I don't know, worms and like, but like. I'll let you know. I'm still figuring it out.
Right.
Sorry.
Could you see yourself ever doing any kind of like bizarre sort of gospel music?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like trying to find the mysterious and spiritual.
Yes.
So to me, it is gospel music, but it's not like in any sort of tradition in terms of like what would typically be considered spiritual in the world.
Yes.
I mean, I find the spiritual in like everyday objects, and in everyday life, because
No, I like that. I find it's.
But I recently bought a book, and it's called The Seven Mysteries of Life, and it's just a really neat book. And it was written by this man who obviously found like the spiritual in everything, and not even the spiritual in terms of like having there's supposed to be some sort of belief system.
Mm.
It's just the idea that it
Does it make the big difference for you now having a pretty permanent band? So the Neutral Milk Hotel is really a band. Does that change things for you?
Well, it's just empowering.
Yes.
More than anything.
Yes.
But the way that we work is so weird. Like some people have been under the impression that we've broken up because people want to know like when we're playing, and it's like, well, we're sort of allowing everyone to, like Julian's doing the music tapes and Jeremy's doing Babacon. He has like sort of like a jazz group that he has.
Jeremy's doing, what is it called?
The drummer is.
Yes.
He plays in the band called Babacon.
Babacon.
Yeah, and it's like an experimental band.
Okay.
And to me, it's just the same as it's always been. It's like we all make up these names for bands and write songs and and have these sort of like. And are very excited about it, and so. But like having it be a band, it still has a completely free atmosphere to where anything is possible, and like everybody's still in the group and still plays. But like we could all like switch instruments tomorrow and like play different things, and like it would be just as real to us as anything.
Yes.
So.
It's strange. People on bikes and uniforms. They like, what are they?
Bicycle cops.
Are they bicycle cops?
Yeah.
You have those in Athens. How quaint. I thought we only had them in England. When you were all making like 4-track noise, shall we say, back in Ruston, I mean, how serious did you think you were going to get about music?
I think we knew right from the start, like, this is what we want to do with our lives, no matter what happens.
Right.
I mean, when I was 10, I was telling my mother I wanted to be in a band, and like, and then from 10 to 13, I just kept thinking about it, and couldn't quite figure out like what I wanted to do, and it wasn't until I met Will that we decided that we wanted to be in a band together, and then we just made music ever since.
Yeah, yeah. Was Robert the most sort of accomplished of you guys at that early stage?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
So
He had like production down and
right,
and fancy chords
right.
and or chords even in general.
And that was before you. So like when you first time you met him, he was already kind of a few steps ahead.
Yeah. Well, see, I met Robert in 3rd grade because he came from South Africa.
Right.
And exactly what sparked him to start making music. I mean, we had discussions about it, but I just sort of have this memory of 7th grade, like him coming out of nowhere and handing me this tape of like a complete record that he made. That was complete with like 12-minute songs that were complete stories, guitar solos,
right,
backwards toilets flushing, and just being like he was like our god, you know.
Right. Right. One of you, and I don't remember who this was, in an interview referred to a guy who was like the Skip Spence of Ruston.
Tom Gertz.
What was his name?
Tom Gertz.
Tom Gertz. Okay.
Yeah, we're still trying to formulate plans to release his music.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Was it recorded?
Oh, there's a few select tracks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he was great.
So he was older than you guys, I guess.
Yeah, he was older and he and his sister lived in a 2-story house, and they had like a 4-track ups in an effects unit and a crappy drum set and a couple of crappy guitars, and we would just smoke these gigantic joints, and then like, and he would play, you know, and then he would always have some sort of crazy recording. Like, he introduced us to a lot of interesting music. He'd always have some crazy recording. Yeah, let's put the headphones on, and he put like it's like this big joint, and he put these gigantic headphones on and crank up the stereo in our heads, and totally blow our minds. And then he'd take the headphones off and be like, "Let's record," and then we would record, and he wrote his own songs.
Right.
Yeah.
Were they good?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they're bizarre. We really. He's been very reluctant to do anything with them, but
he's still around.
Yeah, he lives in Ruston, out in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
But
Gertz is spelled what? G-I-R-T-S, is it? Or G?
Yeah. Well, maybe it's G-E-R-T-Z, Gertz.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, he was a big figure in our lives.
Right. For how many years? For a while.
Oh yeah, for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Yeah, starting when we were about 17.
Right.
Will called me up and was like, "Man, my friend Tom's got a 4-track in the studio. Like, we can come over and record anytime we want."
Right.
And I was like, "All right, I'm coming right over." And we would just every weekend we would just like get really baked.
So that was where you did most of your recording, in fact.
Yeah.
Right. And you were already playing records on the radio station at that point. Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to start Elephant 6 Radio over the internet soon.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. There's a guy in San Francisco that says he can hook us up.
Wow.
So that we can all DJ.
That would be well cool. I mean, yeah, pretty much. Just, you've talked about wonderment and how for you music should be something that, you know, that is full of, you know, beauty and mystery and transports you. Do you think it's increasingly hard to be affected by, you know, like pop music, rock music in that way? I mean, has the world become such a kind of pragmatic, materialist place that it's hard for people to... Is it that people are just jaded about music, or is it that the music isn't being made except by people like you? This, you know, music that really is just, you know, that opens the world up and gets us in touch with what is, you know, fantastic about life.
Well, I would hate to think that were the case. I do think that, I mean, we stay pretty well out of touch with what's happening in the mainstream world, right. But I have to admit that whenever I do come into contact with it, I'm pretty shocked.
Right.
By its complete lack of, and I'm not saying, you know, this is just like somebody turns on MTV for 2 minutes. I don't even know what this stuff is, but it's just like, it just seems to be such an obsession with like being young and sexy and
Yes.
and I don't know, angry and
Right.
but it seems like an anger that just seems kind of empty.
Yes.
But I don't know. I just to me it's just like the music industry has become just like I mean they can be selling records or they can be selling Doritos or Coca-Cola.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't feel saddened by this because I feel like that
There are alternatives.
yeah.
Yeah.
There will always be beautiful music and I mean I'm constantly discovering new music that I love and that makes me really happy.
Mm.
So I can't concern myself. I mean to me it's like the world is only as powerful as much as attention as you give it.
Yes.
And to me, for most of my daily life, it doesn't even really exist. So.
Mm.
But I'm not very good at commenting on it because I feel really out of touch with it, so I really have no idea, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I can critique it or be negative about it.
Well, absolutely. I
I
know.
don't really know.
Well, that's a good thing if you're content within the world that you've made for yourself and the music that you're making. I mean, that's I think tremendously freeing and empowering, as you said earlier. You're not enthralled to. I mean, one of the things that's very attractive about the Elephant Six group is its implicit sort of anti-competitive ethos. You know that there
right.
isn't like, hey, my band's more successful than your band, and you know that I'm just that's what's always very endearing about any genuine movement where people look out for each other and support each other and aren't just trying to, aren't just exclusively concerned with becoming stars at the expense of,
Right.
Would you say that is an important? Not that I mean, sure, you guys want to sell records, I'm sure, and have your music exposed. But would you say that there is a sort of freedom from that kind of from sort of greed and competitiveness, and that's an important aspect of what it's all about.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Good, great. Well, I better let you get back inside.